excuses again.
Hey all, Siege here, and today I wanted to offer my thoughts on the Shadowgrapher, or as I've begun lovingly calling it, the Shadowgrapher update. I don't know why, I just like the way it rolls off my tongue. Anyway, the Shadowgrapher has us heading back to the abandoned Vesper Relay in order to investigate a kind of, well, for lack of a better term, Shadowgate that leads us to a place anyone that's visited the Zariman 10-0 will instantly feel familiar with. The walls, floors, ceilings, and everywhere in between are filled with the artwork of Follie, a Warframe still inhabiting this forsaken relay. And in the end, one of the main facets of the story that adds to the greater narrative in Warframe is what happened to the relay from perhaps a different perspective than we've been offered up until now. It's been some time, but some may still remember Operation Eyes of Blight, where Counselor Vahek unleashed what can largely be considered the greatest weapon within the Grineer arsenal, Balor Fomorians, massive warships capable of immense destruction. In fact, what you see of Vesper Relay now is the aftermath of that event, where the Tenno were unsuccessful at repelling Hex fleet and subsequently allowed the relay to fall. Interestingly enough, the Xbox reality, when PC, Xbox, and PlayStation were their own timelines, successfully protected this particular relay, but with the deal made by Baro Kiteer with the indifference, these alternate realities were merged into one, and somewhat like Warframe's own version of a Marvel incursion, overwrote this outcome, leaving this relay in the same state the other two realities experienced after the attack. And it's here where we're asked to venture into what largely resembles a veil wall or even Albrecht membrane breach, but styled like a painting with the Warframe Follie adorning its canvas. Entering allows the Tenno and their Warframe to see what's actually become of this place, and when they do, a whole new painted world is waiting for them, with the very same kind of black paint-looking substance that covers the walls of the Zariman, and is also in line with imagery found during the Chains of Hera. All kinds of strange art, some looking very familiar, such as depictions of Executor Nitok, the Mesa Warframe, and what appears to be Karish being chased by Grendel. However, there are far more interesting illustrations that still need to be vetted for their relevance, as some aren't quite as obvious as others. But we must also consider that much of what we're seeing and hearing has to do with perspective. One could even make the argument that the theme of Follie, with a prominent Rorschach image in literally every room, shifting consistently, is squared solely around perspective. What do you see? That is what the narrator is also asking of the subject depicted within each run.
Do your feelings have a shape? Can you paint them a face? What do you see? Can you show me? Can you paint it for me? Wonderful! Painting by painting, we grow closer to your truth.
Every time we head back in, we are essentially attempting to carry what they are calling paint to 3 different canvases hidden within the relay, and it's here where I feel the theme of the quest really does present itself as interpretive. One depicts wolves or perhaps kubros lying next to a fallen character with rings of some nature next to them on the ground. Did the animals attack this person, or are they lamenting their death? I suppose it's up to your own interpretation, much in the same way the next canvas is presented. This one appears to show a rablet within the coils of a dark serpent, but above it there appears an eagle, or some kind of bird of prey with an odd-shaped head, somewhat akin to the typical visage of the Arbiter's masks and shield drones. Finally, we have a portrait depicting what I believe is a high-level member of the Arbiters of Hexus, wielding a dagger with thorns, or maybe more likely the dark viscous substance even taking form around him as it appears to even reach out for us from time to time, In this instance, though, seeming to be enveloping them in a very similar manner. My initial thought is that this character is the person whose letters aspirant Zorba is so desperate to transcribe, Master Kozai. Although that's, again, only my interpretation based on the clear look of being himself an Arbiter of Hexus, as well as what these letters Zorba has tells us.
Revered Tenno, my mentor, Arbiter Kozai, is gone. They tell me he is dead, but I reject these lies. Kozai faced down the Wolf of Saturn VI alone. Such a man does not just perish like a dog. You must think this strange, but I beg you, travel to the wreckage of Vesper Relay. There, we will search for the truth.
Once one has gathered a shockingly large amount of atramentum, Zorba can in turn transcribe the aforementioned letters, and we are offered a new story.
I can read the first letter now. It's really short. Here goes. Work hard. Study far? No, study long. Good, Zorba. Happy Kozai. Letter number 2. Zorba. Kozai has work to do. Teach. I don't know this word. Teach. Blobby thing? Truth. Learn truth too. Much change. Big surprise. Huh. Okay. Third letter. Follie is not evil. Follie is a teller of truths. I taught her Hexus stories. You are learning and she is learning. She makes my stories into pictures. You must make her ink into words. I have learned something of Follie's own truth. She was not always as you see her now. Once she was a painter of hidden truths, bringing secrets to light for healing's sake. But others sought to crooked line, warp, twist, pervert her gifts. She was put in service to cruel masters. The Sky Ogres? Wait, Fomorians. The Fomorians will be here soon. I will give these letters to our Preceptor Cephalon. We shall not meet again, my student, my friend. I must keep Follie safe. If you are reading this, you will understand why. And with what reason we should revere Follie as a holy fool, one of the saints of truth. I am confident you will be a just and wise arbiter of Hexus.
From this, we can essentially surmise that Follie was either gifted prior to becoming a Warframe, or at one point just didn't look like her current form, maybe even alluding to an appearance without all the paint around her. In fact, her canvases from the words of her sessions may actually be literal, with the information she receives being transmuted best to canvas. And by seeing the picture as a whole, the subject is then able to learn their truth, and in doing so, ease their pain. However, and this may be illustrated in Follie's frustration during each run,
if you don't fight me, then the paint won't fight you.
her gifts and very well self may have been perverted by these masters. What's more, these letters insinuate Kozai knew of the impending attack in the days or even hours before the relay's destruction, and opted to remain here, as I interpret it, to bury her gifts in this place forever, lest they ever be used for nefarious purposes again. But adamant that this Warframe should not go down as an enemy, rather as a misunderstood and corrupted beacon of truth. An interesting observation while researching for this video came in the form of an actual reference for the concept of what's known as a holy fool in one Saint Xenia of Petersburg. A woman who, after the death of her husband, began wearing his clothing, answered only to his name, and became homeless due to giving away all of her earthly possessions. She was mocked and ridiculed by many who would see her, but this was all done to stave off any notoriety attained from her life's work of consistently helping people. And I like to think there are quite a few parallels here to Kozai's letter. Although, I obviously can't be certain about this, as being certain about anything in Warframe is next to impossible. That being said, I will say that if the person in the portrait I mentioned is Master Kozai, Follie looks very similar to him. And it makes me wonder if this connection isn't, let's say, a little bit more substantial than I had first thought. With all that in mind, though, I have to believe that Follie, or if nothing else, the person narrating through our time within this haunted relay, was a therapist, and apparently an incredibly effective one. This is how I interpret her being a quote-unquote painter of hidden truths, bringing secrets to light for healing's sake. A just description for someone in that position, and if Follie was once an Archimedean, as the dialogue seems to imply, it makes you wonder how many other high-ranking Orcan have also been punished in a similar fashion, or worse.
We took our greatest, volunteers or not, and polluted them with these cultured reagents. They transformed. They became infested.
It also begs to question how many truly volunteered for such a thing. While it's impossible to say, in this case, given how Zorba describes it, I'm guessing the former, as changing someone into a Warframe would have also offered a method of control that would be necessary for someone to want to utilize her gifts without wanting her consent on the matter. And I'd be hard-pressed to believe only Ballas had access to the type of technology used on Umbra. And not only that, but Archimedeans have been a kind of moving target in regards to loyalty in the Warframe universe. Sometimes living lockstep with wishes of their own chosen executor, but in the case of Margulis, Parental, and Savannah, they were either secretly opposed to the wishes of their golden lords, or actively working against what they had been told to do, and in many cases, paid the price for doing so. While Follie seems to be doing what they asked within the memories we hear, Warframes are famously mute in most cases.
Warframes cannot speak, as a rule. Their creator decided they should only scream or roar or howl.
So this does put into question whether her recordings were before her transformation, or if her failure to compel this particular patient as an Archimedean was a catalyst for them imposing the Helminth upon her. Because it would seem her gifts were supposedly of great value to the Orcan. And it's true. With memory being such an important aspect of Orcan existence, one able to garner hidden truth from long forgotten or even removed memories would be incredibly useful. Consider what we just experienced using the Dark Refractory as proof. That being said, after parsing through all the available dialogue and mission, if I had to guess, the person being questioned, being evaluated, is an operator, mainly due to a couple specific context clues, but again, that's just my take on the matter. If there is any method to the madness we are offered, it would seem that this subject was asked to paint their trauma, and unfortunately for Follie, the subject is less than responsive to her questioning.
Very well. We have other, less gentle methods.
With it appearing to almost anger her more and more during the session.
Did you really think I wouldn't find out? I know everything. Oh, you filthy little...
The session, or sessions, taken as a whole, are more likely akin to a kind of interview rather than some form of therapy. Appearing to be given from, let's say, some position behind a glass or even in another room.
Why are you being so difficult? I'm just trying to help you. You just need to let go.
Most likely in order to keep the subject, especially if it is an operator, from having physical access to their host. Sounding as if these messages are being heard from a PA or speaker system, making the whole situation much less personal and insinuating this was likely an uncomfortable questioning for the subject from the onset. And while there's evidence there are more than one,
I don't know how I'm expected to deal with all of you at once.
that doesn't necessarily mean the other subjects in question are Tenno. They could just be other witnesses or even accomplices in some way. What's perhaps more shocking is the revelation that this whole scenario was very likely conducted within a refractory, like the one in the Sanctum Anatomica, or maybe even the same exact one.
I will not permit one refractory subject to occupy my entire attention.
No matter what, they are absolutely struggling to understand each other, and it's possible the subject may have even themselves attempted to fight back or even escape.
I am willing to de-escalate if you are.
I believe we could even consider the subject our very own operator, as much of the dialogue we are given could realistically be applied to what we just experienced at the end of the old piece.
Just need to paint. That's all. Everything will be made clear in time. There are no wrong answers. I want to see what you see. Just pick up the brush. The brush is a part of you. Don't fight it. Let it guide you. Keep drawing it to the surface. All of it. There's no sense in hiding anything away. Secrets will just fester in your skull. You can't run from a guilty conscience. It's in there with you. Why are you being so difficult? I'm just trying to help you. You just need to let go.
Target ahead! Taking them out!
Breathe in, breathe out. Let the paint flow. Remember, the painting isn't real. Nothing can hurt you. You say you're seeing faces? Whose faces? How many? How many of them have you killed? You say they were attacking you. So you killed them all. You are seeing all of your bad qualities. Hate, anger, distrust. You are strangling them. I know what you've done. The painting makes it clear. I know you better than anyone. Do you feel happy? There are tears in your eyes.
Adis? Come on. Sit up. Come on.
Are they happy tears?
Let me feel sunlight. My light goes with you now.
Ballas!
Of all the thoughtless, beastly things you could have done. If I were in your position, I'd be extremely cautious with my behavior.
You changed the codes! Didn't you?
Take this one back to storage. We're done for now.
And if so, that would mean it wasn't just the Lotus attempting to recount what had happened all those years ago. Not to mention, it would fall in line with the current overarching story. The one thing I think we can reasonably discuss is Vesper Relay's current imagery, as it's almost undeniable. This very same appearance can be found all over the recently returned Zariman 10-0, and as mentioned earlier, the look of her painting harkens back to the same kind of idea observed during the Chains of Harrow. And it's with this mindset that I have to assume the Void entity and its influence have too permeated the ruins of this once thriving relay. If the painting is in fact a gate to a now Void-influenced area, the idea of the man on the wall and his supposed desire to keep the past hidden would make a lot of sense here. In fact, there are all kinds of interesting concepts illustrated all over the walls. For instance, as mentioned earlier, Executor Nitok is everywhere here, and it makes me believe her to be one of the cruel masters Kozai described, wanting Follie's gifts for her own. Or Given what we witnessed regarding the Askers, perhaps using some form of transference, someone was compelling Follie into everything we hear within the broken relay. Perhaps even someone like, say, Executor Nitok. As mentioned, she is featured prominently within the relay, and even her statue appears as a reward for Operation Atramentum. Glorious as it is. DE, seriously. We're going to be able to get all 7 eventually, right? Please, I really want the whole set on this one. And even though I don't personally believe in them, or at least their supposed power, if they do in fact turn out to be real and substantial, maybe the supposed emperors too?
The Emperors lie butchered by Tenno Blade.
Well, it all points to a very dark secret. The quest and operation don't fully flesh out, quite obviously on purpose. After all, we also see a depiction of what very much looks like Executor Karish being chased by Grendel and his masseter, matching the story we received in the Laverian entry. Now, bear in mind, much like the theme of Shadowgrapher, or Shadowgrapher if that's what you like, these are my own interpretations here, and I have to say, one very much resembles the Lotus while she was in the Nata form during the New War. Although, aside from the obvious connections to the operator, I don't necessarily know what that means. Then we have others that resemble some of the Murmur enemies as well. Perhaps one of the more horrifying aspects of the relay are these faces made of the black sludge. And within the Arbiter's specific room, one in particular is made to look like one of their helmets, as well as hands that I have to be honest and say they very much resemble those found on Scholar's Landing, assumedly representing Major Rizalka's presence and influence upon the area now that it has been returned from the encroaching void. And this substance resembles the same viscous fluid found during the Hex quest, where our drifter is being consumed by a very similar looking sludge, shown all over the walls in the very same cryptic way, and is perhaps the greatest tie with what the Indifference has already shown us.
The common factor behind all of your problems is you.
Why not deal with the real source of your problems? Obliterate yourself.
There is a connection here, maybe even extending to another similar looking substance found on Tau. But the Void entity has proved time and time again to be a trickster at heart, so who at this junction can really say for certain what its true purpose for this place, as well as Follie, is in the end? Who now does she actually serve? Interestingly enough, this may be the first Void-controlled Warframe, at least at this point. But I suppose it could too all just be a huge coincidence Vesper Relay has so much of the same imagery as the Zariman, with DE just using the same assets to save time. I'd like to think it's actually a bit of both, the connection as well as saving on assets, as that's just good business practice. But nonetheless, if we can agree things look similar enough to at least consider an association, the possibility of the Void controlling a Warframe, like it can obviously control a vessel, well, if nothing else would explain why this place is so horrific, with children's corrupted laughter constantly following us as well, and a really weird kind of static one can hear when close enough to one of the goo wells. If we come to learn, it did in fact want to keep their past hidden, something the Lotus 2 speaks of during the Parida Rebellion.
Your memories were erased out of mercy, but if they are not recovered, the Indifference will corrupt them.
The question I'm still struggling with is the why. Why are these particular dialogue snippets being even presented? If this was an operator, perhaps our own even after the events that transpired specifically at the end of the old peace, what aspect of these memories did the Orkin, or Ballas specifically even, turn her into a Warframe in order to exploit? I'd be remiss to mention the fact that the Lotus and the Orkin trying to pry into the operator's past while the Indifference keeps it concealed does add significant weight to whatever specific memory or memories they're all looking for. I feel like Shadowgrapher is perhaps more than any other quest about interpretation, literally down to the writing on the walls. One of Warframe's most prominent story strategies is offering just enough info to understand what's going on, but very seldom enough to definitively understand without a doubt the full story, typically adding more to the narrative with each associated new update. But even then, never fully explaining everything. And Shadowgrapher, or Shadowgrapher, is no different. The mission itself, to me, was quite enjoyable, adding a much-needed horror element I haven't felt since the Chains of Harrow, although I would say Whispers in the Walls did incorporate some things with a similar feel. Like most updates of this size, I basically only felt myself wanting more in the end. But I do get that this was only ever going to be a small update story-wise, so in the end, I'm happy. We've still got much to figure out yet, and I will continue to examine aspects of the quest and return my findings in a later video. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video and it got you thinking about the why of this update. What aspect of it is DE attempting to portray that will most certainly play a huge part in a future campaign? Maybe even the next one, but don't hold your breath because it could be years down the road yet. We've seen it happen quite a few times already. As always, I'd like to thank the channel's members. Thank you all so much for your support. I really am blessed to know you value my content enough to keep helping out as you do. So for this, I am and will always be eternally grateful. Also, can't forget my longtime channel support in G Fuel, a product I use to this day, and given its longevity on the market, I believe that in itself speaks to its actual effectiveness and preference among many who, like myself, need a bit of a mental boost at times. So thank you again to both, and thank you all to those who support the channel by coming and watching the content each and every time. And at any rate, I hope you all have a wonderful day today, a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk at you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye.